Okay, let's film a DVD and Blu-ray update, and I suppose I can show the Christmas gifts that I've received as well. I got a few films. I've only seen one of them so far because I just received them, and then I got some other things that I suppose I can show very quickly as well. But then the main portion of the video is, my own purchases, which is going to be a lot of random stuff. I haven't really planned this at all, so it's gonna be. I'm not gonna show a ton of stuff this time. It's not gonna be a 1 hour video, as you can obviously tell from the timeline. But I mean, I typically do that. I'll film. I'll just keep going forever, and I'd like to maybe try to keep them down in length if I can. Okay, let's show a few Christmas gifts here. So I got some things from my father that I put up on the list. So Talasso, Michel Houellebecq, and Gérard Depardieu. Houellebecq he's a writer. He's known as a kind of controversial writer, French writer. I haven't read his stuff, but I mean I've seen this, The Kidnapping of Michel Houellebecq, in which he plays a kind of version of himself, and this is a sequel of sorts, in which he checks into this spa. I don't actually know the word Talasso. They're referring to Talasso as like the place they're in, but I've never heard the word before. But anyway, it's a kind of spa, a health regime or whatever. They're not allowed to drink. They're not allowed to eat. I'm not sure if they were allowed to eat unhealthy stuff, but they definitely weren't allowed to drink unhealthy stuff. And the food they eat is very healthy and so on. And this is obviously a continuation to this film of sorts, a loose sequel. And he does refer to himself quite a lot. And Gérard Depardieu, he kind of runs into him while in the spa, and they kind of recognize each other. I'm not sure if it doesn't seem like they knew each other. I mean, it's not a documentary, but it is a very kind of loose narrative, kind of improvised. It feels like it's a lot of improvisation in this. And Gérard, he plays himself, and he kind of he tells Michel that he has a bunch of wine in his room, so come over if you want to drink. And I mean, it's not a prison they're in, but I guess I don't know what their mindset is exactly. But it's a pretty entertaining comedy drama. I knew that I was gonna enjoy this. I mean, anything in terms of new. I mean, any Swedish DVD release with him in the role. I mean, I'm basically gonna buy anything. So yeah, I did enjoy that. These next ones I've not seen. This is Hamsun, filmed by Jan Troell, who is a Swedish director who I like very much. He directed, The Emigrants and The New Land, for example, and Here Is Your Life. This is a film by Knut Hamsun, who was a Norwegian writer, and he wrote a book called Hunger, I think the English title is. Yeah, and I've read the book, and I've seen the film with Per Oscarsson in the leading role, which has become one of my favorites. I think about that a lot. And so this film with Max von Sydow in the title role, it just seemed like there are a lot of things that made me want to watch this film. So he was a Nazi supporter, as you can see on the back. I think he wrote Hunger in like the late 19th century, I believe. So he was quite old when Nazism came around, or German Nazism. Here is a film called The Man Who Killed Don Quixote. I've been wanting to see some more Terry Gilliam stuff lately, so I wanted to get that. And then finally, because I've been watching a lot of Clint Eastwood films recently, I got this as well. A 3-film collection, sort of a random film collection, or 3 of his most maybe acclaimed westerns in terms of him as a director as well. So Pale Rider, The Outlaw, Josie Wales, and Unforgiven. I'm not sure if this has extras. I have no idea what the situation is like, but it's 3 films that I've seen Unforgiven, but I haven't seen the other 2. I received the Dirty Harry films from my mom last year, and I mean I've always been aware of Clint Eastwood, but I haven't thought too much about him as a filmmaker and beyond just, oh, this is a Clint Eastwood film, all right, cool. So I've never really watched films just because he's in them to the extent that I have this year, because I really enjoyed the Dirty Harry films, and I bought other films on DVD and Blu-ray since. I'll talk about that a little bit later. I have a few more to watch, so I suppose I can finish watching those and these, and then I can come back and talk about them all. But yeah, I'm becoming an increasingly larger fan, or a bigger fan, of Clint Eastwood. Just some random things here. I need some of these. I haven't opened these up yet, but headphones, and then some training gear. It's I've never really used stuff like this before, but I'm looking forward to trying this. I would have worked out now actually, but I've been sleeping so terribly, so I didn't have the energy. Those were wrist wraps, and then these are straps, figure eight straps. You kind of you have the bar in between here, and then you kind of I haven't tried them out yet, but I think that's sort of how you work them. So I'm gonna have to try these out and see how it feels, because last time when I did a heavy deadlift, kind of double overhand, and I don't want to do the thumb lock, which you can do, which hurts, and I don't really want to do that. So I thought, well, the grip is giving in at this point, so maybe wraps will help me out a bit. But anyway, so that's the other stuff, and I suppose I have a lot of stuff up here. I can show you some of the things that I've been watching that I haven't shown before, or well, yeah. So let's start with a few of those things that I haven't shown, because I mean, some of this stuff I have unboxed, but yeah. Well, anyway, this one I received a while ago. Come and see. Oh, this is difficult to be brief about. This film I saw when I was, I think I may have been about 20, but that's 8 years ago, and I liked the film back then, but I wasn't completely taken with it as in the same way that I was now. I would say that watching Come and See, and by the way, this is, if I understand correctly, the first region-free American Criterion, and there are reasons for that I'm not going to get into. But yeah, so watching this again, I had a really strong emotional reaction to this in a way that I'm not completely used to. And I've seen the film before, so I know what it contains and stuff. But some of those scenes in this film, they were just so emotionally devastating and powerful and haunting in a way that I'm not used to feeling this affected by film. I can feel this affected by video games, because it's a different thing. You're kind of part of the whole experience in a different way, and you spend much more time in the world. But with films, I'm typically not that taken. I mean, I'm taken with films. That's why I buy them all the time, obviously. But I'm not to that point where I'm like, I kind of feel like shit after having seen it. I mean, it's a great film, but I'm like, it's just it's a hard film to take in. But it's a brilliant film, and it's a very impressive film, and I'm glad that I watched it again. I'm glad that Criterion finally put it out. The Blu-ray is very good too. There are some, let's see where they are, three 1975 films, so before this film was made, so unrelated, but they're about the same theme of kind of Nazi occupation of Belarus. The films from the Flaming Memory series, which consisted of 5 episodes in varying lengths, because 2 of them that are contained here are like half the length of the third one. So I'm not sure what the other 2, the length of the other 2 would have been, but they weren't available. But the 3 that are included here are really important and very, very powerful on their own. So that is a brilliant extra that I urge anyone to watch. I mean, something like that could have been put out on its own, and it would have been valuable. So it's I really urge people to check that out if you have the Blu-ray. If you don't have the Blu-ray, I would urge you to get it. But I mean, you always see pictures of people's purchases and so on, and obviously a lot of people have bought that. Yeah, so I have an AntiWorlds release here, Penny Slinger, Out of the Shadows, um, a film by Richard Kovich. Penny Slinger, I haven't been able to find much information about her online at all. I mean, she has a Wikipedia page, but they talk about a lot of stuff that she did here that I can't find a lot of information about online. But yeah, she was. I mean, this is a Blu-ray that I bought because I'm loyal to, well, Indicator, and then supposedly these guys are sort of not that connected to Indicator, but the Blu-rays look very similar, and their focus on lesser known films is very similar as well, although in the case of AntiWorlds, they focus on contemporary films from all around the world, which is brilliant that there's a company like that. I wish their first wave came out like 7 months before the second wave, and this was part of the second wave. This is actually number 4, or -4 as it says. I have the other two as well, but I haven't finished them yet. But this one I have finished, and it's a pretty basic documentary in terms of how it's presented, but the content, it's really valuable, that people can find out about Penny Slinger, and that I can find out about her. I mean, her works, An Exorcism, her series of works titled An Exorcism, were very impressive, and it's a great Blu-ray too. I mean, there's, you know, a lot of extras, and yeah, I didn't love the film, but I really liked getting, you know, becoming familiar with Penny Slinger. Let's see. So I suppose I'm just gonna show some. I talked about in the, well, maybe I should hold off. You know what? I said in the past, in a previous video, that I was gonna make an update with just Asian cinema, but I'm gonna scratch that because I have so much other stuff, and I don't know when I can get around to doing that. So I'm gonna show off a few other things here that I've seen recently and bought recently in terms of Asian cinema. So here is Made in Hong Kong, filmed by Fruit Chan. Sort of brings up the themes of the sort of Hong Kong handover back to China, which is a theme that is sort of elusive to me. I've heard about it a lot over the years, and when I studied film, I heard about it more in depth. But yeah, it's dealing with the angst involving that handover, and it's very inspired in the sense that this was filmed basically with discarded celluloid, and it was just a passion project that came together because of the passion of it all, I suppose. Yeah, you can kind of tell there's no kind of uniform or aesthetic quality perhaps to the film, but there's a lot of energy to it and a lot of sincerity, and you can kind of feel the drive behind it, the desire to get this film out, and I really liked it. Here's a film that, have I shown this? I don't think I could have shown this, but this I fell absolutely in love with. This is The Taste of Tea, and I prefer the other artwork. This has a couple of interesting scenes from the film, but as a cover, I prefer this other one. Yeah, this it's a Japanese film that is really inventive. There are so many elements from so many different genres, and so many things to like about this independently of everything else, and then as a whole, it's a really beautiful film. I'm not sure how you would sum it up, because it's got so many different parts to it that are all lovely and wonderful, and it's a very sweet film. The ending is just beautiful. There are some more disturbing subject matter throughout the film, but it doesn't become cynical. It sort of keeps a quirky, kind of positive, endearing quality throughout the whole thing, and it's just wonderful. It's absolutely one of my favorites that I've seen this year. So many great ideas, inventive ideas. It just grows on you. This film is quite long. It's 143 minutes. It really doesn't feel like it. This is just a brilliant film. A director who decided to go with his vision and trust his instincts, and he really I'm happy that he did, because I mean, what you have here in this film is something completely unique, and yeah, just a beautiful film. That's perhaps the word I would come back to. Is yeah, yeah, I loved it. Um, yeah, okay, so I've shown this before in an unboxing. Goodbye Dragon Inn, a film by Simon Lang. Simon Lang. I recently bought another film, actually. I bought another DVD that I'll talk about later. But I love this film. It's a slow film about just an atmosphere and a location, the location of the cinema. And it's some of these shots. It's very minimal, very simple, but it's a film that takes its time, and he's a director who takes his time with scenes. A very kind of probing camera, kind of pondering camera. He's kind of the shots are captured so nicely that everything you look at in the frame, you have boxes in the middle, and then kind of I don't know, whatever it was, but just ordinary stuff that shouldn't be interesting, but the way the way they're captured, it becomes very artistic. It becomes very kind of meditative. You really get into the groove of this film, and it's a hard film to talk about, but it's a very simple film in some ways. But as with a lot of simple films, they're sometimes deceptively simple. There's a lot of stuff to like in that film. I saw that Apichatpong Verasetakul, a Thai director. I'm always nervous pronouncing long names like that I don't actually know how to say, but he's called that film his favorite film, or the best film of the past 125 years, which basically adds up to film history. So he's saying that it's his favorite film, I suppose. And speaking of him, here's a film from him, Blissfully Yours, another very slow film. This DVD is a little bit rough in terms of quality, but it doesn't really matter. It's just I wasn't sure if I'd like this as much as his other films. I've seen Syndromes and a Century and Tropical Melodies. I especially like those. I'm gonna try to get around to watching those. I'm pointing because they're lying in front of my TV. I really want to try to watch those again. This one I had never seen, so I was really happy to watch this. I had heard some people who generally like his films maybe wasn't as crazy about this, so that may have colored my lack of priority of getting this over the years. But I finally, well, you know what I mean. But I finally got around to getting it, and I'm really glad I did. It's again very minimal. It's not trying to tell a story so much as it's trying to. It's trying to kind of deal with feelings and emotions and time and a place and people's the way people exist in this place, and giving a sense of this place by showing this place for a really long time. Sometimes time is very necessary to achieve to really communicate what this place is, and this place being sort of the forest or the jungle, which he has in Tropical Melody, for example, and in others of his films too. He has talked a lot about the jungle and explored that. There's some interesting underlying themes there that I don't fully comprehend, but it's very thought provoking. And yeah, this film is quite graphic in some places, but it's not just for that reason that I'll say that it might not be for everyone. It is incredibly minimal, incredibly slow. There are shots that go on for quite a long time with nothing really happening, but there's something about nothing happening which appeals to me, because something is happening. Even if nothing is really happening on screen, something is usually happening in my mind. And Apichatpong, he's so good at. I mean, I sometimes refer to his films as ASMR cinema. It's very kind of you just get absorbed with the spare sound design, and his attention, his when he decides to focus in on something, whether it's just a tea, a tea being poured and stirred, whatever it is, the way he films it, the way the sound comes across, it's just completely unique. And I never really was able to understand exactly what it is about that, but it's his own sensibility that comes across so well. So yeah, I've seen most of his films now. I have Mysterious Object at Noon, but I haven't seen it yet, so I can't talk about it. But the other ones that are released in the UK on Blu-ray and DVD, I have seen, and I wish more of his lesser-known stuff came out as well. I'm not sure if it's on the same quality as some of his main films, but he has done a lot of projects that I haven't been able to find anywhere. But I'm looking forward to whatever he's gonna do next. He's actually gonna direct a film with Tilda Swinton, or maybe it's already directed. I'm not sure, but it's yeah, his English language debut is coming up, so yeah, should be interesting. Okay, and here we have three Criterions that I got from Zoom, 3 for 30, so very cheap. I've never found Criterions that cheap before. I mean, they've had 2 for 25, but 3 for 30 is I should have bought some more, but I only bought 3. So this is Laventura by Antonioni. I'd never seen this before. I'd heard a lot about it. It wasn't exactly the way I expected. I expected it to go into a different direction towards the end. For whatever reason, I had heard something about the ending, and I had an image in my mind, and that didn't really happen the same way as I was thinking. But the film is yeah, I can't do this film justice while I'm trying to keep this short. But this is speaking of slow cinema, this is a film that perhaps started that genre. So very important film in that sense, a film that really takes its time. Here's a film that is man, I've been watching so many great films lately. This is Beau Travail by Claire Denis. This was a new release, so the fact that this was only £10 so soon after release, I was really happy to see. This is one of those films that throughout maybe half of the film I wasn't sure if I liked it, but then something happens in the ending where various themes are explored further, and then the film leaves you with a killer scene at the end. One of those scenes that just makes the film a scene that stands out from the rest of the film, a scene that's just perfectly placed. Yeah, that film I really like very much, and this film too. All these I picked 3 really good Criterions because these were all brilliant films. This is Certain Women, Kelly Reichardt. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce her name, but she's made a couple of films that I've seen before. Wendy and Lucy and Meek's Cutoff, and I saw them quite a while ago, so I remember not liking them very much. But I would very much like to see them again because this is another very minimal film, really focusing and really exploring very specific topics, very specific scenarios. It's not trying to tell everything, it's trying to tell something, but that something is done so well. I mean, for example, just the opening shot of this fucking movie, that shot looked like a painting that was moving, and that may sound like a cliche, but it honestly looked that way. That opening shot, it just goes to show, like comes down to so much comes down to how you frame a shot, and I suppose what camera you use or whatever technical aspects that I may not understand. But yeah, that shot just really brings you in, and then a couple of following shots of this small town. Just a very few number of shots really brings you into the feeling and the atmosphere of this film. So brilliant film, I really loved it. Okay, so I've picked out another 4 films or 4 releases that I want to talk about, and then I'm gonna wrap this video up. This is an indicator release called Spring Night, Summer Night. This film is really moving and really interesting in the sense that it came out around the time when films made by young directors, they started to get more traction and more exposure, I suppose. And young directors were obviously getting a lot more work around this time in 1967. So that's the same year as Graduate, Bonnie and Clyde, Midnight Cowboy. I believe it's the same year or around the same time. And those films obviously were a very big deal in creating the new Hollywood. And films like these have been forgotten, and it shouldn't have been. But the extras are absolutely brilliant. I mean, this is one of the best releases that Indicator has put out in my mind, hands down, bar none. Absolutely an amazing release. I mean, a masterpiece on its own. There are so many extras that contribute that it's not just superfluous extras for the sake of just extra content. I mean, you have documentaries and interviews that really shine light on what happened to this film, why it never got a proper release, some problems involving the FBI, I think, and the studio, and a recutting of the film to appeal to a different audience, or and the director not really wanting to be bothered by some of this stuff, so he just kind of let it go. And yeah, it's a really kind of heartbreaking tale, because the film is terrific, but people didn't see the film, people didn't know about the film until much later. And hopefully now it can have a major renaissance, because it really deserves to. It's a brilliant film. So many extras here. I mean, we got a few short films, and featurettes, and behind the scenes material with commentary. The producer to this film, or I'm not sure if he was a producer or maybe like a second like assistant director or something, but he was a key part in the film. And the director of the film is dead, but the producer is alive, and he seems to do well. And so he also appears to have been an instrumental part in the creating in the creation of the extras and supplying information and so on. And so yeah, really recommend that. And here's a film that I saw a couple days ago called Black Mother, Khalik Allah. I had heard about this film in the sense that I recognized the cover, kind of vague memory of, oh yeah, this looks familiar, this DVD, but I didn't know what it was, and I forget how I found out about it. But I mean, the cover basically says it: a thrilling hallucinatory portrait of Jamaican life and history. I mean, that's what it is. It juxtaposes images and music and portraits of people. I think Allah, he has been or still is like a photographer, and I saw like a few brief. I didn't look at them, but I saw them kind of scroll by some of his photographs, and you can kind of tell that he comes from that world, because he films people head on. He has them look into the camera. He highlights their personality, the personality in their eyes, and so on. And he films them beautifully. He creates a really interesting, moving kind of tribute to these people and Jamaican life and history, as it says on the cover. Fairly short, 77 minutes. That may be, I think it was actually 74, so that may be including the trailer. So it is a short film, but yeah, it's one of those films that it separates sound from image. So you're looking at something, and you're hearing something else. You're hearing people speaking, often in like a thick Jamaican accent, or what to my ears sounds like people kind of sliding in and out of English, but there's no subtitles to it, which didn't feel frustrating to me. It made me focus on what they said. It made me, for whatever reason, I thought that was a good choice, not to have subtitles for that. Even if I couldn't understand everything they said, it just seemed to be the right choice. It added to the abstraction, in my case, to some of the images, some of the juxtapositions, the choices behind some of the juxtapositions, but it's just a brilliantly created kind of experimental documentary. This was pretty cheap too, so I would recommend getting it. Here's another film from Dogwoof, The Price of Everything. You know what I'm gonna do with this? I usually link my Letterboxd in the description, and I did write a review for this, so I suppose just to save time I can refer you to that. But it's a documentary about the modern art world, and it's pretty basic in its approach, but it's very interesting. The information and the people that they talk to makes for a very interesting viewing. So I very much liked that. And then the last thing here is something completely unlike many of these other films, but this is the Real Marigold Hotel Series 4, as well as 4 episodes from the Real Marigold on Tour. So Series 4 of this series, based on the film Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, documentary series of mostly British, but sometimes, I mean, Britt Ekland is in this, and she's a Swede. There's been an American, Sheila Ferguson has appeared, and maybe a couple other people who weren't British, but most people are British. I suppose they may have lived in Britain, and that's why they're here, I'm not sure. But yeah, so British celebrities, mostly unknown to me, but I start to like all of them as I watch the show. Yeah, they go to India with the sort of premise that they wanna find out if they could imagine retiring in India. But really, it's just an excuse for people to get together, go someplace where they maybe wouldn't have gone normally with people, maybe they wouldn't have traveled with normally, and just exploring the themes and culture of India. And I enjoy this stuff very much. The Real Marigold on Tour is like a sideshow where they travel all over the world. Not these people, but like a revolving cast of Real Marigold Hotel cast members. So you often have like Miriam Margolyes. She was in the first series. She has appeared in a lot of these on tour episodes, and Bobby George and Rosemary, I forget her name. Well, anyway, a few people that seem to be kind of cast favorites in a way. They come back in the on tour episodes, and so on this DVD, the on tour episodes, which is just sort of a bonus, but it's actually more interesting than the main show. So they are traveling to Mexico, Russia, Vietnam, and what was the other place? Argentina. So that is interesting because you get to revisit cast members, and you get to go to different places, and they are actually a little bit better, I think. But yeah, so we're ending with that. But that's the update for today. I suppose some mixed stuff, really. But thank you very much for watching, and I'll make another one pretty soon. I have more stuff to talk about, so I'm gonna come back pretty soon. So okay, thank you.